How's it going, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. We're finally back from regionals, and with that, the final BT13 lists are going to be coming out because we did, of course, fanboy sweep. So I'm going to be doing my armor deck list for BT14. This is for people that are currently without the promos. There's been a lot of distribution errors with them outside of the US. And for those of us that want to play armor but aren't able to get your hands on the promos, we do have Magnamon ready to rock. Shoutouts to King Kai, that I think will be over here, for providing the art for the egg sleeves and the main sleeves. But without further ado, let's get on to the video. So, Digimon starts at the eggs, and so shall we. We are on for Bukemon, alternating rarity, pre-release regular, foil regular. I will try and get a full playset of foil of some kind, so my podcast co-host doesn't just quit the show. But Bukemon is incredible. It means you don't have to run jamming Veemon at all. Every Veemon is jamming if you're going first. It's pretty sick. You can be incredibly belligerent. And yeah, this egg is a problem. Speaking of no jamming Veemons, the new best Veemon in the deck is for EX1 Veemon. Because now you can basically turn 2, push out, Veemon goes in with jamming. And then if you go into it with something that unsuspends, it's a 2-cost Evo, 1-cost Evo. Very, very, very silly card. You can do a lot with this, especially in late game as well if it is your main Veemon. So we're running him at 4 because he currently, without promos, is the best Veemon in the deck. Now, the worst Veemon in the deck, BT8. This guy usually bottom decks 4 pieces, but if you are digging specifically for an armor, he is the one to drop because he finds Magna X, because Magna X is not free type. He is a 2-color, and it finds your gold Veemons for the same reasons as well. So he, if you're just looking for general pieces, worst Veemon to play. If you're looking for armors, and occasionally you'll find a Daiken, but usually he ends up bottom decking 4 pieces. Evolve him in the back if you have to, if you don't have the EX1 to get your inherit. And then the last one is 4 of the free type Searcher Veemon. Does let you find a Davis as well, which is all your Tamers. But it does bottom deck gold Veemon. When I was like, one of the first games I played out of this, when it was out of profile mode, it bottom decked 2 gold Veedras and something else, which is conveniently actually going to be the first armor that we play. 2 of these, because the Shrink and Stun I think is more valuable than the turning a level 4 sideways. Lydramon is cool for that, but this lets you shrink an 8k, which is most level 5s, down, and then stun it specifically if there's an armor in trash, which allows you to turn off level 5s quite quickly, which can be make or break. Also lets you kill small bodies, which for like Fasco in the Luga matchup, as well as basically every Commandramon. The shrink and stun is nice, especially because you can shrink something and then stun something else. It can be a different target. Best card at level 4 lineup is Magnamon. We do actually finally have an ult for BT8. I was able to trade for it at the Liverpool regional. Didn't catch the guy I traded with, but thank you very much for finally getting me my first BT8 Magna. He is probably the card that you want to see early because this plus this is swing with jamming, unsuspend into a blocker, unsuspend into a blocker for 2 memory, or you can go again if you have enough memory to do so. Also, with training, you can go into it for 0 because you are gaining back the 1 off the EX1 and you've reduced the 3 cost down to 2 anyway. So you can go into things for 0. Very, very silly card. Big fan of BT8 Magnamon, and it is another armor purger which does meta in the Fenrir matchup. Unfortunately, this one does not have that, so it will die and give Fenrir unsuspends, but it is the Magnamon to build in the back if you have to. And it is usually the one that we blast Evo over as well if needed. This one is the most expensive out of all of them for some reason. The price at the time of recordings boomed to like 100 euros. It's insane. Magnamon hype is real, and I don't even think this is the best Magnamon. I think this one is significantly worse than the Armor Purge. Yes, it lets you float and get researches, which can be pretty funny, especially if it's on your opponent's turn. You don't really care about the thing, but aggressively, this is significantly worse if you don't have jamming. This one, you can at least be belligerent and have the Armor Purge come in clutch. Speaking of Blast Evo, 2 Magna Ace. You could go for Zudo, but we found that Magna Ace was a little bit more effective, especially early game where you are going to be higher security. if you have two Magnas out, you can blast Evo over one of them and then block with the other. You'll have shrunk it by 5, by 6 if it's early, or by 3. And sometimes, especially if you've gone this Magna first and then go over this one and then you get your DP buff, the shrink, you don't have to be as high a security to shrink something down in order to get the block. And of course the recovery is nice. So we are running 2 Magna Angemon Ace. But if you do like Zudo, Zudo is the best in like the Ace off. The Zudo is the best one because it does answer everything in the game if it has no sources in terms of just dropping it raw for raw. And none of the other Aces can pop Zudo because the DP threshold is too high, whereas Zudo can bounce every ace back, which then obviously refunds him 3 or more depending on what ace he's bouncing back. So yeah, we're using Magna Angemon because he generally has better utility against stack decks and like the stack OTKs, but you could run Zudo if you wanted to. Zudo, of course, is also searchable off of the blue trainings and blue boosts and stuff like that. For our level 6s, we are just running 4. No Kuzuha this time. It is just, once again, alternating rarity Magnamon X Antibody. This card is one of the 3 cards that solos the D-Brigade matchup because it lets you just redirect into it. You just have to prioritize getting into Magna X as soon as possible. And you actually, even though obviously you're only at 4, we do have better ways to actually recur this Magnamon X Antibody with our options. We are a blue deck, so we do play Omnimon, Blitz Omni for game, because you have plenty of times where you are going to be aggroing people down with jamming, doing a bajillion checks, and then just finish things off with an Omni. And then also with that, we do go 1 Omni X as well. Omni X just brings your lethal clock just a little bit faster, because you can, of course, get rid of a pesky option that would cause problems, as well as when Digivolving bottom decks everything of the highest level, which means if you're sitting on like multiple 6s in like Commandramon, for example, if you're sitting on 2 brigades, you can bottom deck both of them at the same time, especially if you manage to strip protection already from going into things. I was able to go into a situation where I was able to clear 2 because I was able to bottom deck. I'd already stripped the sources of one of them. I was able to bottom deck that one and then force the protection out of the other brigade. So when swinging X Antibody into it, I was able to just kill it and clear both. Omni X, very, very solid, especially if you do manage to go 2 stack wide if you're playing these slower matchups. So that is all for the Digimon. 12 rookies, the kind of standard. We will be going up to more of them once we have the promos. 10 level 4s. All armors, of course. 2 5s, no DNAs or anything like that, just going for the ace mechanics instead. 4 level 6s, and then 2 level 7s. But for the Tamers, we are running 1 BT12 Davis. This card is personal and chopping block. He is just going to get shot straight away. Gives you 1 extra memory if you do have the free type, which is obviously everything except your Omnimons, your X Antibody, Magnamons. Oh, to be fair, it's actually a decent amount because Magna Ace is in it, Gold Veemon is in it. In fact, all of the cards currently visible besides the Veemons are not going to give you 1, but if you do have the Ken, then you'll get the extra memory guaranteed. He is also 3-drop, which makes him a little bit cheaper in those earlier times when you don't really want to be passing people 4. If you have the Mem Setter Davis, then you can come down and play a very cheap, low to the ground turn. We're just running 1 memory setter because right now the memory setter is nice and you do kind of want to be able to search your pieces. And of course we are running 2 Daiken because unsuspend on anything is incredibly strong when you have EX1 Veemon giving you back a memory. And if you're going over into a Gold Veemon or a BT13 Magnamon that doesn't give you instant restand, then Daiken helps you do that. It lets you go into Magnamon X Antibody unsuspended during an attack. Very, very nice. 1 Awakening. I'm not super... This card won't be super necessary once you get promos because you actually kind of run out of space. I'll still test it, mess around with it because the card is nice and it does recur a Magnamon from trash if it does show up in security late. And of course, playing around DP reduction. Relevant for Shine. Right now, I haven't found a need for more than 1. In fact, I was running less than 1, but we've kept 1 around for now. 2 Emissary of Hope. This one is kind of the spicy tech that I think people aren't really on or respecting enough. Magnamon X Antibody always goes to security when it dies. So if you are in situations, especially if it's single stack or like single attack, and you let your Magnamon X Antibody die next turn, you can just Emissary it back. And you're back into a Magnamon X Antibody. We're not running any TKs because yellow TK was a little bit too dangerous right now. But if you are on a more control list where you're running a bunch of yellow options, you could run the yellow TK, and then when you're doing Emissary over your Magnamon, when your Magnamon purges, you're healing 1. When you Emissary into it, you're technically burning 1, but you're evolving for the 1 cost. Then you get to heal another 1, which is incredibly broken. I was testing blue TK, but you had to raw draw into him because you couldn't search him off of anything. And blue TK is atrocious. So it was yellow TK or bust. And I think there's just too many non-yellow pieces that you wouldn't want to yellow TK, especially if it came out of security late. But you could mess around with it, see if you can get a TK working in your lineup, and then Emissary is giving you a +1 every time it goes off. But right now, it's kind of just a little fun tech option because it allows you to really control what you're redirecting into and whether you're going to be redirect, get it purged, and then bring it back. If it dies during your swing on your attack, so you don't have jamming, or you're swinging into bodies to clear and crash, come straight back into it, Daiken unsuspend. Very, very solid. For board control though, 2 Sorai. Sorai, very solid card. Versus D-Brigade, stuns the whole board and also strips out the eggs. And if it's not, like, if for whatever reason it's missing other sources, then you're able to hit Mind Link Tamers as well, just catch them on it. But more often than not, it's stun the board and force them to Mind Link, which then makes things a little bit more awkward if they want to actually get sources on them. But I found this to be very, very useful. It saved me versus Fenrir a bunch of times. And it's just a pretty nice card to have out of security, or if you need to make sure that there are no Digimon that are the same height as you in terms of stat, because Buka's obviously if you're taller than everything. Sorai just kneecaps something to make sure that you're taller than them and can then swing with jamming like a degenerate. 2 training because we're in BT14 and everything has trainings. No boosts, just trainings because, like I said before, this can't be mem blocked. It's a little bit more awkward to floodgate out, and it lets you go into Veemon for... It makes you go into Magnamon for 0 off of EX1 Veemon. Very, very solid card. It lets you go into Magnamon X antibody for 2 if you're sitting on a Magnamon. It just makes things a little bit more simple to use. But the reason we're not using as many Awakening of the Golden Knights is because we are on 2 armor textures, so that way you can come in on an unsuspended armor, which is very, very, very strong. So yeah, I'm a pretty big fan. Armor texture, you do get to play the Veemon if it comes out of security. It is a you may, so if you're playing into Fenrir, you probably won't because it'll just get popped straight away. But very, very solid aggro card. Lets you go into Gold Veemon for 1 on an EX1 Veemon because it is auto unsuspended. Very, very solid card, and definitely at least a 2 of. And then we are running 3 X antibody because Tomihime is out of jail. And as a result, you need to make sure that you have X antibody so your Magnamon can still do all the redirects that it needs to do. Also, being able to evolve during attack step is very, very useful because you are going to be kind of swinging like an asshole and never really using the blocker timing. You will nearly always be sideways. So being able to go into Magnamon X antibody, make sure that as you go at security without a care in the world, you can go into Magnamon X antibody and still be able to play that defensive redirect game and force them to answer it. And if you have Daiken, then it's going at security unsuspended, which is very normal. And the reason that you're always swinging at security is because we are running 4 fire rockets. Pep talk right before regionals for the Fanboy 3 group was that everyone has a game plan until they get punched in the face. So let's go punch people in the face. And Fire Rocket's going to be doing it for 2 checks. Especially if you got training or early game, if they've passed you just a little bit, you can be going Veemon, unsuspend, Fire Rocket, Magnamon, 2 checks, just burn them for 3 on turn 2. It's very, very silly. And also crucially, its security effect, this is a meta where it actually comes up. Fenrir dies just completely out of nowhere if it checks Fire Rocket and security, because they will have AG, therefore it still has blocker, therefore it just dies. You can just shoot it straight away out of the blue. I've had Fenrir die first check to Fire Rocket and just lose the game because they've like, oh, okay, I've done this whole thing. They've put you to 2 memory. It's still my turn. Swing dies on the first check, my turn. Amazing card. This is actually one of the few metas where Fire Rocket security effect has relevance. So if it's in security, great. If it's in your hand, kill someone. Just sometimes you build a Magnamon in the back so you can just push out and drop 3 of these on the table and just swing. It's awesome. Especially, I'd say, I've mentioned it a bunch, but the D-Brigade matchup is solved by, the matchup is Fire Rocket, X Antibody, and Magnamon X. Those 3 cards are the only cards that matter in that matchup, and it's how fast you find those 3 and how many times you can use those 3. But yeah, this is what Armour, if you're playing Armour Rush, this is what this deck should look like in BT14 until you get the promos. Once we get the promos, you can do a little bit more testing on the ratios, and they do get unbanned on the 29th of October. So we will be switching to a promo list. I'll probably put it out the day before, so that way people can start getting their stuff together. You'll be looking forward to seeing that on the 28th or 29th, because I do, thanks to Jambo, shout out Godfish Jambo, he did get me my Ukomons and my playsets of Promo, Veemon, and Davis, so we will be showing off what my version looks like with the Ukomon and Davis as well. But this has been Armour Rush. I'm so glad to be back to my roots. We're going to be having the top 16 and top 8 deck lists from the Fanboy 3 group coming onto the channel periodically as well. And of course on Wednesday I'll be going to get new BT14 footage. But until then, hope you guys enjoy a bunch of new deck profiles for this BT14 meta. And let me know down in the comments what you're playing in 14. And of course, subscribe to the channel, join the memberships, and watch the podcast.